time now to take a look at what's grabbing headlines in the international papers. Solange Moujon is back with us. Solange, the papers understandably giving a lot of coverage to that quake in Mexico and the rubble and all that's left.
Yeah, indeed. It's a serious story. It's a tragic one. But when it first happened, perhaps like other people, I asked myself, wait, didn't they just have one? Well, The Guardian asked the same question. Less than 2 weeks apart, are the Mexican earthquakes connected? The article says essentially that the quakes are too far apart to be aftershocks or to be linked, but that the first one may have created just a little bit of extra pressure needed to create the second one. Now, the article also says that Mexico City is basically an awful place to be in an earthquake because it sits on an ancient lake, and that means that the earth below the city during the earthquake shakes like jello. So
it doesn't bear thinking about. And there's also, we've been hearing and seeing indeed those horrific and tragic images of the plights of the people still stuck underneath that rubble. Papers comparing those images to that of another quake that rocked the city, because that was also something that took us all by surprise. It was actually on the anniversary of another massive quake.
Day for day on September 19th, but in 1985. A quake hit Mexico City and it killed thousands of people. The daily El Universal has an interactive tool that compares images from the first quake 3 decades ago and the one this week. They also compare how the media covered the tragedies, and the images and the headlines are eerily similar, not to mention the coincidental date. But in the editorial, the paper says that the Mexico of the 1980s isn't the Mexico of now. That Mexico today isn't the same place, that it's much more equipped, it has designated rescue missions and better built buildings to deal with earthquakes. Even if the editorial says that politicians, which they call, quote, vultures, are still as ever trying to, quote, spin the tragedy to their advantage by posing in front of cameras as being part of rescue operations.
You have those ongoing rescue operations, really some tragic images coming to us, and sadly the death toll likely to rise closer to that one that we saw in the mid-80s. Let's move on though for now to Catalonia. There, the referendum for independence and the rift between Madrid and Barcelona is really heating up.
Yeah, let's start with the front page of the Spanish paper El País. It shows a photograph of Spanish police trying to clear out protesters. They came out by the thousands in the streets after the Spanish Civil Guards, which is a police unit, detained 14 Catalan officials and seized nearly 10 million ballots. The headline of the paper reads, "Justice dismantles the referendum." El País also has an editorial that breaks down some of the claims by the president of Catalonia. The paper says they're false. Carles Puigdemont says that his regional government was under attack and has been shut down by Madrid. The main Spanish paper daily disagrees. They say that only the regional government's activities regarding the referendum were halted. Now let's take a look at the other side of the coin. Okay, the pro-independence Catalan papers. El Punt Avui calls Mariano Rajoy's actions akin to a coup d'état. Support for the referendum is also found on the front and center of the Barcelona paper Ara, with its image of the Catalan government flag and its headline, quote, "In defense of our institutions." As for the analysis, the pro-independence and rather the politically active media pro-independence and rather politically active media outlet Villa Web says that the government's strong arming wasn't a well thought out move. In an editorial entitled "The Day That Spain Lost Catalonia Forever," they argue that Madrid's use of political force and judicial force may have begun to, quote, turn public opinion towards supporting secession. Now, Libération fleshes out that very argument. They interview a law professor that says that Rajoy's strategy to block the referendum at all costs is, quote, counterproductive and destructive, because it leaves no room for negotiating a deal where Catalonia would be able to gain greater independence from Spain.
Indeed, it looks like that aggressive response has at least pushed people to call for the right to the referendum, if not exactly wanting that independence, perhaps. Let's move on, though. There is a story, I believe you flagged up, about a French company that was paying the Islamic State group.
Yeah. This morning, Le Monde follows up on a story, a very important story that they broke in June. They discovered that the French cement manufacturer Lafarge, which is now the world's largest cement manufacturer, was paying the Islamic State group funds to keep their factory in Syria open after the jihadist group took over the region that the factory is in. Now, in today's article, Le Monde says that they've gotten their hands on the findings of a French investigation, a government investigation into Lafarge. And the investigation found that 1, the government knew about the payments to the Islamic State group, but that 2, Lafarge did not tell the government exactly how much cash they were giving to the Islamic State group. Now listen to how much cash they were giving. 20,000 euros were being paid to the jihadists per month.
Absolutely fascinating story. I'm going to have to troll through that in just a few minutes. Finally, though, to something a lot lighter, I believe. No, not quite.
No,
I saw the word photojournalism.
Sorry.
No, it's a serious report then in the New York Times.
I've selected an article from the Times photography blog, The Lens, because the images are just incredibly striking. And so is the story that goes with it, actually. 4 years ago, an Abidjan photographer started to document women who make charcoal in Senegal. They take wood and they burn it to make charcoal. And it's really back-breaking work. It's really hard. The photographer explains that she didn't even last a single day before falling ill from the smoke and the dust and the sediments. And so she tried to make them with the women, and she says that they have started a collective together to help each other financially, because it's mostly poor women who do the work.
Another article I'm going to have to take a look at, even to understand why we'd want so much charcoal. But Solange Moujon, thanks indeed for that review of the international papers. Time now for a quick break here on France 24. Back after this.